Hey Zwifters, welcome back to another Recon. Stage 5, Temples and Towers. We're back in Mercury Islands. We're crossing through Nyokyo and Jumeirah for what is the longest circuit in terms of distance and elevation on the Mercury Islands map. Great course, 3 climbs. We've got the rooftop, the castle and the temple climb. The temple climb coming on dirt. Same distance for all riders, and we'll take a look at that in a bit more detail shortly. But what do you guys think of this season so far? We're on stage 5, so we're over halfway now. For me, it's been one of the best seasons, has been the best season so far, and I think that's helped by a number of things. First of all, the selection of courses this year I think has been great, but also I think it's helped by the Pack Dynamics 3.3. Even on the flat sprinter stages, I think there's been some really interesting moves and tactics used. The power-ups have also helped, but we've seen breaks, we've seen solo attacks. Even in the Premier Division, we've had solo riders go away and stay away for a significant amount of time. But what do you guys think? Let me know. Leave a comment. Let's have a chat in the description below. All right, so let's take a look at the course in a bit more detail. Temple and Towers, 32.5 kilometers. 320 meters of elevation. There's 3 climbs to look at here, as we can see from the course profile. We've got the rooftop KOM, which is 1.9 kilometers and 2.7% average gradient. Hopefully you remember this from the earlier in the season when we raced this towards the end of stage 1. We then go through the tunnel out of Nyokyo and towards Jumeirah, and then you've got some farmland, some country land, which is fairly flat and rolling until we get to that first of a double header of climbs. First of all, we've got the Temple KOM, 2.7 kilometers, an average gradient of 2.1, so reasonably long. I've raced this recently. I'm going to be looking at showing you some race footage to look at today. I'm an average B rider, and this took about 4.5 minutes from the bottom to the top, so something to think about there. And we then got a short flat section before we get onto the big boy, the Temple KOM reverse. Again, 1.9 kilometers, so not massively long, 3.5% average gradient this time, but it does pitch up to 10 in places. And the thing about this, it is on dirt, so it makes it longer and it makes it harder. It's going to be a really grippy climb to hang on in there. And then of course you've got around about 2.5 kilometer descent on the dirt as well, which could be useful because you're going to pick a power up at the top, and if you pick up a steamroller, which is one of the power ups this week as well, that could be useful on the descent as well, either to solidify your lead if you've got one, or get yourself back into that leading group if there's much left of that leading group to hold on to. So let's roll on and look at the power-ups available before we get on course. So as I said, let's take a look at the power-ups before we get on course this time. One of my lovely subscribers, followers, viewers, whatever you are, did comment last week, maybe we should have the power-ups before, and then as we're rolling through the footage, we can have a chat of where to utilize those power-ups. So if we take a closer look, looking at the power-ups, we have the Aero. It is a flat sprint finish, and again, some of the tops of these climbs, including the temple and the castle, have slightly flat sections just before you cross that segment end banner. So again, some use for that particular power up on the finish of those segments also. We then have the burrito. So again, if you're out front, you want to make it harder for your competition or the other riders around you, then hit that burrito button, hit that power up, and that will disable the draft for 2.5 meters around you. And then we do have the infamous steamroller. Plenty of opportunities to use this, but in particular on the temple climb, both going up and going down. So if you do get it as before you hit the temple climb, then absolutely use it on that temple climb, either to make your decisive move to take that segment victory, or to go for the victory overall if that's where you decide you're making your break, or maybe just to stick with those lead riders. But if you do happen to pick up a steamroller at the top of that climb, at the top of that temple climb, then absolutely use it on the descent, because once you get to the bottom and you're back on the roads and the pave, there's not really much chance to use that steamroller. So make sure you're using it on the dirt of the temple, going up if you get it before, going down if you get it on the Temple KOM. Bear in mind, you will go through Castle Banner again, so you will pick up another power-up before you get to that finishing sprint. All right, we'll talk about bike choice at the end, but don't worry, I don't think there's any need for any bike changes this time, so it'll be one simple bike choice to make. It'll be the power-ups that make the difference in racing this time. Right, let's get out on course. Let's take a look at this race footage and get to know these segments. Just to point out before we get on course here that all 3 segments both have first across the line and the fastest through segment points to contest here. So again, you've got a 6-man team, utilize that team, think about who's going to go for FAL or FTS points. Maybe the same riders going for both. Maybe you've got multiple riders going for both as well. All right, so we're going to leave the pens here. We're going to take a right before you get to the arcade, and you've got about an 800-meter lead in here before you go under the virtual banner. Again, just be wary, Zwift starts can be fast. I do think this season that ZRL starts, the riders are experienced enough now that we don't have this full-on Zwift-style, cross-style start that we've had historically. But again, just something to be aware of. Now, just to say, at kilometre 2.1, there is a little rise that just takes you up onto the tram or the railway line here as well. It's only a couple hundred metres. It's not massively steep. But again, it's just something to be aware of before you get onto the rooftop climb proper. All right, so the rooftop KOM, 1.9 kilometers, 2.7% average gradient. At kilometer 3.2, you're going to take this right turn here, and then another 50 to 100 meters after at kilometer 3.3. This is where the segment starts proper. So 3.3, rooftop KOM, this is the starting point. And again, it's pretty undulating, not massively steep here, very, very draftable. All right, so hopefully you've sat in the wheels and you're ready to finish off this first climb and pick up those fastest through and the first across the line points on this one. The finish of this climb is going to come at 5.2 kilometers. And again, I'm going to leave all the notes in terms of the distance markers for the start and the finish of each segment down in my Recon notes, which you can find a link to just below. All right, so once we come off the top of this rooftop KOM, you then got about a 2-kilometer descent down through Neokyo, down off the rooftops and back onto the flat roads. Now, it is worth saying you are going to go through the railway sprint banner here at 5.2. No preem this time to contest, but you will pick another power up here as well, which is really useful. All right, so that's basically the lap of Neokyo done, and then we're going to head through the tunnel and head towards the countryside in Umezi. So at kilometre 11.5, you're going to go through the tunnel, and then you'll start to see the green farmlands. Okay, kilometre 14.4, you're going to take this right turn, and this is the road now as we head up towards that castle climb. Now, the castle climb itself is going to start at kilometre 15.1, fairly undulating to start with. At 15.5, it does start to pitch up a little bit more, 4, 5 and 6% on average. And then what you'll notice is the road changes. We then get to some pave, and again, there is some benefit to using that steamroll on the pave if you have it. But once you get to the pave, you know you're creeping up towards the finish of this particular segment, but again, just be wary because the pitch does change. It does start to increase in the gradient through this section as well, up to 8% in places. So as I said, you'll notice at kilometre 17.1 you hit this pave, and this segment actually ends at 17.8. So it's 700 metres from when you hit this pave to the end of this particular segment, and it does flatten off for this last couple of hundred metres. So I'm going to let the footage roll on so you can take a look at the end of this particular preem. Bear in mind, this was a B race. We averaged 3.5 watts a kilogram for this particular race. And on this climb, it was 4.5 minutes, just to help you judge the climb and the time and your distance and so on for this particular preem. All right, so we're then in this section between the two climbs, between the castle and the Temple KOM. Now, at kilometre 18 to 19, it does continue to be a little bit draggy in between after that castle KOM. So again, if you're one of those stronger riders and you want to make this one really long effort to string out the field and reduce those groups, just be wary that riders might do that as kilometre 18 to 19. But then it does dip off before we get onto this final climb, the Temple KOM. Let's take a look at that in a bit more detail. All right, so at kilometre 20, you're going to take this right turn onto the dirt road, and it's kilometre 20.1 where the segment starts proper, straight onto the dirt, straight into the climbing and the grinding up this climb. 6.5 minute climb approximately, again for a B race, I think is what we were looking at here. Just be cautious, there are sections where it flattens off, there are sections where it pitches up to about 10%, and again, about 500 metres from the finish of this climb, it does pitch up to 10%, but then with about 300 metres to go, it actually flattens off and it's pretty flat. So again, just in terms of your power-up choice, you've got that aero, you've got that steamroller, just think about where you're going to utilise this, where are you going to make your decisive move. All right, so the climb is going to finish at kilometer 22.6. The climb itself, 2.5 kilometers, 3.6% average gradient, but it's the dirt which makes this slower and harder as well. So again, as you crest the top and go under the spanner, you're going to pick up a power up. And if you do pick up a steamroller, it's on this descent where I would advise to use it. Again, either going for a break, pushing out, lengthening out, making it tough for your competition, or utilizing it to close any gaps if any opened up on the particular climb. All right, kilometer 24.7, we're back on the solid tarmac roads. And again, we can think about now, start to think about the finish line. You will go through the Temple KOM banner again, obviously in the reverse direction. So you will pick another power up there as well. Hopefully you're going to pick up the burrito or the aero and you'll have something useful for that sprint finish. So again, fairly flat undulating roads now, plenty of recovery and plenty of time to think about your tactics on that sprint. If you're not a sprinter, what are you going to do? All right, so kilometer 32, we're back under the tunnel and we're back in Yokio, and you've got 1 kilometer to go until that finish. You've done the climbing. It's now about trying to finish it off with that tactical and powerful sprint of yours. So in terms of the sprint, what I will say is it's obviously really, really flat, but you actually don't see the finish banner, this virtual finish banner, until just under 100 meters to go. You take this mile left-hand corner there, and all of a sudden the banner is on top of you. So just think about that. Utilize the power-ups. Hopefully you've got an aero at this point, but again, if you've got a little bit of a gap, a burrito might also be useful, and then you're going to take the sprint, just power versus power, without the use of any drafting in there as well. Now, obviously, if we look at the footage doesn't necessarily say I win this race, but apparently I did win this race. It's just one of those Zwift things, but obviously the footage, I got second, but on the results, I got first. But I'm going to take it. I haven't had a result all season so far, so I'm going to take that win. I did send a little note and did say I would make a comment on this footage as well. But thank you very much to the Glasgow Cycling for organising that ride. A great race, a great bunch of guys. I hope you guys have fun, but not too much fun, and a little bit of pain, a little bit of sweat in Mercury Islands and Temples and Towers as well. All right, so in terms of bike choice, it's an interesting one. I think you've got a few options here. I think statistically the stats would say go for an aero setup. Personally, I'm going to go for something a little bit all-rounder, maybe the Scott Addict RC, because let's be honest, any of the decisive moves in this race are going to be done on the climbs. Those climbs are also on dirt or on pave or something like that. So I'm going to be going for an all-round frame, but as always, I will leave a link to the Zwift Insider pages below, so you can have a look at the best all-rounder at your level. Again, one of the documents I use is the Tron versus the Top Performer, and again, you can look at the climbing versus the flat ability of each bike and wheel combination. So take a look at that, a link down in the description below. All right, so in terms of Recon, you simply have to get yourself on the Recon this week. Sunday, 5 p.m. UK time. Teppo Lorio is doing the Recon this time with the ladies over at Rave. Great character, very, very knowledgeable guy as well. And he's very cool, just to top it off. I was very lucky to be on a Discord chat with him right at the beginning of the season as well. This guy knows Zwift, he knows the courses well, and of course he's been racing in the Premier League. So if you're getting yourself onto a Recon, RaveCon with the ladies over at Rave and Teppo Lorio on Sunday, 5 p.m. I'll leave a link in the description below. Enjoy that. I'm also going to jump on that particular ride as well. So that's it, guys. I'm off to sit in a dark room and drink some espresso and prepare myself for the Temples and Towers. I hope you guys do the same. Thanks for watching. Please give it a thumbs up and a subscribe. I really do appreciate the feedback. And I'll see you guys on Tuesday evening for another ZRL. Ride on.